Welcome to the Soccer Coaching Podcast, where we will discuss all things that impact soccer coaching across all levels and ages. Please listen, enjoy, and share your thoughts on the discussions at the Soccer Coaching Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Soccer Coaching Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott.
And I'm your other host, Mark.
So, Mark, how's your week been?
Not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Lots of football at the weekend. Training, matches. It was just full on weekend of football. No cancellations. It was excellent. And actually, my team a lot of the things we've been working on in training started to come to fruition in the game. So it kind of felt pretty good. We won, but we won in the right way. We played the right kind of football. So I was very happy with the boys.
Strong performance.
Strong performance. Yeah, really strong performance. Yeah. And good yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Yeah, we had a good game for the boys on Sunday. We did our best to throw away towards the end.
Yeah,
we hung in there. Yeah,
big local derby as well, right?
It was a local derby. Yeah, and actually, I think when we were 3-1 up, it was fine. But when it went to 4-3 with about 3 minutes to go, the derby tensions kind of increased a little bit.
So, question: did you change any of the tactics, your approach? Did you just stick with it, and that was it, regardless of the score?
Definitely,
be honest.
Yeah,
be honest.
The approach definitely stayed the same.
Yeah.
I think you know how we play. Everyone rotates around, different keepers in positions. Everyone we do it all like we think is right.
Yeah.
But one thing we don't work on, particularly in its truest sense, is goalkeeping.
Yeah.
We work on using their feet, but we don't really work too much using their hands. We haven't got, it's not a priority for us at the moment in time. And this is U7, so it's a bit of perspective. So with the little ones, we don't really worry too much about the goalkeeping, but ultimately that does cost you. I reckon probably a quarter of the goals we concede come from keeping errors, which is absolutely fine in the sense that it is never the keeper's fault.
Yes.
And what I'm proud of is the fact, even though we do make keeper errors, and it's inevitable given the fact we don't focus on it, the boys never get bothered by it.
Yeah.
They don't, and they react quite well. Parents and coaches can be like, okay. So I think to answer your question, when it was the last 5 minutes and we'd kind of given a goal away and another good opportunity just by our keeper passing out to their player rather than taking the time and finding the pass, I was probably a little bit more direct in my instructions about, okay, slow down, put the ball on the edge of the area, take your time and then find your player. I certainly wasn't, what we didn't do was start kicking it long, that's for sure, so we still kept playing football, but just a bit of composure, a bit of game management. But I think it's probably okay to help the kids at 6 and 7 with some game management.
I think that's fine. But I think what the point I was making there, actually, in previous podcasts we've spoken about this whole kind of winning versus development or results versus development. I think what's interesting actually in that situation, when it does get that close, actually as a coach, you kind of naturally tighten up, don't you? Even though it doesn't really matter if they scored a goal and equalised. What odds does it make, right? What is it? It makes no odds.
It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter. But in 3 months'
it's
time,
so hard, isn't it?
And it's in the moment.
Yeah.
In 3 months' time, you won't even remember that game. You just won't remember it. But as a coach, you naturally just tighten up, and maybe sometimes the players can feel that. I don't know. I wasn't there, but but it's difficult to kind of just take that step back and say, actually, what does it matter? Because you, I guess maybe you want to win the games, but you want to win it in the right way, and you've done everything in the right way to get to that winning position, and then it gets that close.
That's the point. It's almost the validation of what you're doing is working, and because arguably we're taking a harder approach, in some ways it does make it more challenging to get the result out of a game when you play players in positions that they don't naturally gravitate to their natural strengths currently, and you're rotating around more, so they're not getting used to doing one thing all the time. So it does make it more challenging. So when you're getting a group of kids to ask them more maybe than the other team are in many cases, you feel responsible for trying to get them over the line in some ways. But ultimately, the players don't really mind afterwards. They just want to play well and stuff, don't they? They just want to have a good game and do their best. So so it probably is. If I'm honest with you, it's more me and the parents that care, than the result than the players do. But I think we did stick to the principles on Sunday, and it was a tough game, and we made it harder for ourselves. But the boys played really, really well. Yeah. And the scoreline, with all respect to the other team, I think we were better than the scoreline suggested. And I'm not trying to have my rose-tinted glasses on. We did do well. But you look at the game for how the players played, and we did some good things.
Yeah.
We did some good things.
Well, all the feedback that I wasn't there, but all the feedback that I
The match
received,
reports.
the match reports and things like that, apparently the boys were very, very good. So.
Well, I was more impressed. So this week I was at one of the local development academies, the Premier League ones in North West London.
Yeah.
So I watched their U6s and U7s train, and that was impressive, actually. Yeah. So I saw the kind of that level that these guys at that age knocking on, getting signed at academy at under 9s, potentially at your Chelsea's, Arsenal's, that kind of thing. And you can see, there's 2 or 3 of it was all boys, but 2 or 3 of the boys there were,
Very
just
good.
very, very good.
And these are boys that are in the development centre. They're not even in the academy at this age.
No,
they're just
exactly.
kind of one below that level.
One below
right?
that, yeah. And you can see they're knocking on the door. And I was speaking to the guy that runs it, and he was pointing out that they stood out really. To be fair, I mean the level was good, across the board. About 30 kids there, I'd say. But 2 or 3 of them, you could. Hey, I'm not saying crystal ball here for 10 years' time, and they're going to be playing in the Premier League. But certainly at this moment in time, at their age and stage now, they're up there, and you can see.
Yeah, but these boys are probably playing. They're probably playing at that development centre. They're probably playing at another Premier League development centre, another one on another day, right? So in theory, and they've been cherry picked to be there.
Yep.
So in theory, they should be good, and they should get better if they haven't got too much football when they get fed up of it and that kind of stuff, right?
Their opportunity for acceleration in what they do is definitely enhanced by the amount of hours they put into it 100%. And that's the challenge, right? Is to keep these young players loving the game and wanting to play still when they go 13, 14, 15, when it potentially could get serious for some of these kids. But it was good to see.
Yeah. What we should talk about very quickly was that both of us were at the League One development centre last night with the under 7s playing against them, right? It was the way it was set
their
up.
selected strongest 6 or 7 kids.
Yeah. And I think probably the listeners realise that my son plays for your team, but I don't get there every week, so I've got my own team to coach. So last night was a great experience for me to go and watch him play on the sideline.
Under the floodlights.
Yeah, under the floodlights, and actually be on the pitch and helping him with a bit of the coaching and stuff. So it was a great experience for me. But I was just absolutely in awe of some of the football that the boys played, both being on the ball and also the way they were moving the ball. And I think particularly in the first game when it was set up in a 5-a-side pitch with 2 small bazooka goals on each end that were positioned in the wide kind of channels, as wide as you can go. And the way the boys were just like, they took maybe 5 minutes to get the hang of the game. It was a little bit scrappy, but then after that they just switched. You almost see that switch go. And the way they were passing the ball, switching it from left to right, kind of really bamboozling the other team, confusing them. It was just amazing to see. And I guess from a coaching point of view, you must have been super proud of them just watching them.
I was delighted. I mean, you go to these things, and again, given the age, most of our players are still 6 years old. So they're not even turned 7 yet.
And there's quite a few of them that are young. They're young.
They're
for the
May,
range,
June,
right?
July. They're not. They're 4th quartile. Babies for the way it works for us. So you never know, and understandably, how the boys are going to perform in a different environment, a different night of the week to training, floodlights, a little bit of rain, after school, those things. And I think it's fair to say last night they all clicked in, and were all up for the game and the challenge, and they really rose up to the opposition. And once they got the game, arguably some of the best football I've seen the kids play. And for me, I think walking away and reflecting back on it, it was nice because I felt we managed it well. I was able to pull we were playing 5v5 with no keepers in the first game with the bazooka goals. But if something wasn't quite right, I could pull off one of the boys, have a little word. We'd play 4v5 for a little bit. We'll play it down. Doesn't matter. Have a little chat, talk about things, put them back on. I kind of felt like it. We did our bit too to support it in the sense of.
Well managed,
it's different to what you might do on a Sunday when you don't want to risk having a player off for a few minutes.
But you shouldn't be different, right?
It shouldn't be, and that's going to be part of our.
That's the part of the discussion.
We're heading for this, aren't we? That's
it's a good.
We're heading on to this improvised podcast episode.
Yeah, but what I would say is, firstly, I thought that the League One Development Centre, I thought they got it spot on in terms of the amount of football that was played. It was really, the ball rolling time must have been really high, right? Because I think we arrived at 5:30 or before 5:30. The boys are warming up for kind of half an hour.
Yeah.
Then they played an hour and a half of football with kind of a few minute intervals between each half. It was just really run very, very well. I thought it was excellent, and just the kind of thing. That's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, relaxed, fun, enjoyable, and I think they helped the boys actually.
Yeah.
And having the two formats. So what they did was they split it into two different games. So we played half the time playing with the two bazooka goals either end, like Fonino kind of style.
Yeah.
And then we played the other half of the time on a more traditional 5-a-side pitch with your 12-by-6.
Yeah.
We use Samba goals with a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And what we did last night, which I quite liked, when I thought the boys did it really well, was we would try and really use the keeper as a bit of an out-of-field player. So particularly when the keeper had the ball, so drop the ball at your feet, carry it forward. Once you can commit one of their players, then you play your pass in. And I thought we did it really well last night.
Yeah, and that's interesting because you've been doing that on a Wednesday night in futsal inside, but you haven't maybe done that every week on a Sunday. I think you're trying to encourage it a little bit more on a Sunday, but that's something new for the boys, right?
Well, you saw how they were nervous, weren't they? Because they didn't want to make a mistake, and I don't think that comes from us. I think that just comes from them and their appreciation of their teammates and wanting to do well. And I remember Mourinho, when he took over at City, and was talking about John Stones saying, to play as a centre back for his team, you need to have balls, right? He's because actually you got to do, and you understand it. And like to play in goal and as an outfield player, as a keeper, you got even under 6, under 7s, you got to be brave, right? Because you've got to be willing to make that risk to commit the play and play the thing. And I was going, carry it forward, carry it. If they weren't going to commit, you keep going.
I think one of the boys looked at you like,
are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah,
it could all fall apart on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Next game. Yeah. But it then leads on to these kind of other coaching points, i.e. actually you're making that pass, you've drawn the defender and you're making that pass, and the person who gets the ball in theory is going to have a bit more time and a bit more space. If they get their body shape right to receive the ball on the back foot, then they're away, and they can just make ground. Do you know what I mean? And then that brings the next player in, and they can then move it, or they got a 1-on-1, they got that situation.
Well, and that was another thing about last night, I thought. But you're right. So the question then is, why are we doing it? So that's what I'll be doing on Saturday with the boys, is asking the question. We'll reflect back a little bit on how it went. And I'll ask a couple of points I'm going to mention. One of them will be about how we use the goalkeeper and why we did that. And if they can pick up the fact that actually, well, if we commit one of their players, then play the passing behind that player, we've got an overload, right? We've got the extra player, So, because we brought one of their players out of the game, and I'm confident the boys will give me that answer when we ask the question. And then I think, okay, because then we carry that principle up the pitch further, so we break the next line, and you don't get too technical with 6 or 7-year-olds, but you can understand, you can still put the principles in there of what we're trying to achieve and the rationale behind it, and that can only help them with their decision making and how they grow. The other thing I was really pleased with last night with the boys, and I think it's the best I've seen them do this, is decisions on when to share the ball and when to take players on. I thought we did it really well last night. And I know there's a big argument, or not argument, there's a big case for saying, well, you shouldn't have 6-year-olds here even sharing the ball, just stay on the ball. I think we spoke about it before, but my big challenge with that is, if you just make them stay on the ball, well, there is certain areas of the pitch where it's more productive to do that, so I'd encourage that. But also you're taking away all that decision making about, sometimes playing back into the space, playing away from pressure, sharing the ball at the right times, giving and goes. There's so much stuff you take away from that. I know you get more touches on the ball, but we can do that in other ways anyway. And I don't want to take away that decision making from them. So I don't want them to overshare the ball, but certainly do it in the right way at the right times, and also encourage your teammates to find that space off the ball, because if they know it will be shared to them in the right space, then they keep the pitch nice and big. And we did that really well last night, I thought. The boys picked the moments to beat the players, and they picked the moments to share the ball, and the boys not on the ball kept the pitch nice and big when we had it.
I totally agree. And I think I think the interesting point about this is that a lot of the stuff that you read is around, actually, the boys, they need just get them enjoying it, and they'll come back the next week, and that kind of thing, which is absolutely right. But at that age, they've got to enjoy it. It's got to be fun to bring it, to keep them involved in the game and keep them wanting to come back. But I think you do an injustice if you are not really pushing the boys as well, in terms of and giving them those decision making options, in giving them decisions to be made in training, I think even at 6 and 7, you're doing injustice if you're not.
They're capable, right, of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Totally agree.
And also, if they're equally sharing the ball, it's equal time on the ball anyway.
Yeah.
It's no different to one person having the whole time. Do you know what I mean? So it balances out. I do get the case. I'm not. It's important to get as many touches as you can, especially at the younger age, the foundation phase. And the boy, I totally get that. But they're getting that in just different ways. And so it was good last night. It was good. It was good. And I think so. Both of the points that we've discussed kind of bring us on to what the podcast today. And we're going to cover two things really. Well, one in more detail, but one off the back of an email that we got, which relates to ball rolling time, and a question around that, which you're going to cover in a second.
Yep.
And then we're going to go on to something that we've kind of just batted around as a bit of an idea over maybe the last few weeks, and we're just going to talk about it, right, and see where we land and share some ideas and see what other thoughts there are from other coaches, right?
Yeah. Totally
Should we do the email first?
Let's do the email, So I'll read it out. So it starts off with, "Good day. My name is Santi, and I'm quite new in the football coaching world here in the Philippines. Currently an assistant coach for one of the top schools here in Manila. Your podcasts are very insightful."
We like him already, Santi.
Yeah,
Full
absolutely,
marks.
yeah. So far, I've finished the first 2 episodes. Would definitely recommend the soccer coaching podcast to my co-coaches. I would like to hear more about ball rolling time and the difference between ball rolling time and active learning time. I would love to hear an insight directly from you guys. I wish you all the best. I'm looking forward to learn more from your upcoming podcast. Best, Santiago Rodriguez.
Well,
so
a great question and a great email.
Question. Yeah. So I'll let you kick off on this one.
I'd rather be flying to the Philippines and seeing Santi in person and trying to talk through it.
Yeah, indeed.
I bet it's a bit warmer over there than it is in here at the moment. Yeah. But we've had a few emails again, and it's nice to get them. And we do respond back either directly or obviously through the podcast. In this case, with Santi's one, but it's a great question, and I think it's an important one because it's a technical element between ball rolling time and active learning time. But then it brings up the conversation. Okay, what does that look like in practice, and how important is it?
Yeah.
So let's do the question first. Right? Should I cover that quickly?
Yeah,
okay. So ball rolling time. Most people will be familiar with it, but ultimately here what you're looking at is saying, okay, in a session, let's say you've got a 60-minute session. During that time, how much of the session is the ball in motion or the ball's in motion? So it's looking at how much the players are actually playing interactive and doing things, as opposed to stoppages and things that will stop the ball from rolling. The English FA, as part of their DNA, so the things that are kind of almost like compulsory about what you want to have as part of your coaching sessions, they look at 70% as a minimum. So I think actually you mentioned it as you measured on your level 2.
The actual guy, when one of the in situ visits, he's there actually stopping and starting a stopwatch, so he can tell you what percentage it was.
We'll come back to that because I've been interested to see how that compares to active learning time then, because it is different, and I can see Santi's question where it's coming from, and it's a good point. So ball rolling time, let's get a session going. As long as the ball is rolling, we're all good. Active learning time is a bit different. So what you're looking at here is it's more individualistic. So you're looking at how much each child is moving in a physical activity.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's similar, and both of these things are about learning by doing, ball rolling time and active learning time. But there is a fundamental difference here, and it's an important one, because if you reflect on this as a coach, you could be slightly misled by having a high ball rolling time.
Yeah.
So let's look at a practical example. If I've got let's just say 9 players.
Yep.
And we're doing some 3v3 matches. Winner stays on. Game keeps going. So you've got a team of 3 sitting out at one point and 2 teams of 3 playing each other. First team to score 2 stays, losers go off, kind of thing. So we keep going. So if we did that for an hour, that's 100% ball rolling time. Agreed, isn't it? Because the game's not stopped, right? It's not even going to stop. Literally, the new team comes back on when the other team's going off, kind of thing. Makes sense. It doesn't stop. Now, assuming the 3 players that aren't playing are sitting down, either watching or doing something, and not involved with a ball, then even though it's 100% ball rolling time, the active learning time would probably be 66%, I'm going to say, because you've got a third sitting out all the time, right? So that's kind of how you can see the difference. So if you wanted to be on your level 2, maybe, I don't know how they would have seen it. I would imagine they would have been probably okay with that, as not the whole session doing that, but if you did that for, say, a quarter of your session, because that fitted in what you were doing, that would have probably kept your ball rolling time up quite high. They probably wouldn't have counted the 3 that were sitting out of the practice, which well, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's how ball rolling time is measured. Active learning time is probably more, I think it comes more from an education background. Certainly in classrooms, we look at how students are learning and who's engaged, and whether, if the teaching learning is only happening for one group or 3/4 of the students, then that's not what we'd want to see from what we'd call a grade 1 or exemplar lesson. So active learning time, you're kind of thinking, okay, can we get all those players involved? So in the example I gave with the 9 players, what you might do here is then have the 3v3 match going on, but when the players are off, maybe the 3 are doing a passing activity or something. So there's some ball rolling time there as well, and that you're keeping both going.
Does that make sense? It does make sense a lot. And I think maybe so I think Santi said he's an assistant coach in one of the top schools in Manila, so maybe that's where the education piece coming from. Maybe
that makes sense.
But it perfectly makes sense to me. I think that there are certainly things that you can do, I guess, to increase your active learning time. I think the point you're making around having kind of something going on, if you've got a match and you've got some players that are not playing, you've got things on the side that could be going on. You could be doing a little passing activity, or you could maybe use those players as bounce players, perhaps. So that's the other option. That's something that I've seen done quite a lot, and I don't use it a lot myself, but I quite like it. You got the other concept around a Magic Man, which is an option. I guess that you could get the person involved in, even the players involved with your coach on the side. You could be asking them questions as you're going along, so they may not be necessarily involved in the game, but you're still actively involving them with what's going on, because you're kind of asking them a question. So there's certainly ways around it, and I know obviously you have things like shorter interventions and things like that. I guess the interesting point is that the FA want to try to get as high a ball rolling time as possible, which makes absolute sense, right? Because the higher the ball rolling time, the more touches the players are getting, things like that. I guess at what point actually is it not very effective? So if you've got 100% ball rolling time, to me that doesn't make sense to have that. As a coach, what are you actually doing? What kind of value are you adding? Now maybe someone would argue you only kind of step in when you need to step in, and making it even an intervention, individual intervention or a team intervention. Maybe you do individual interventions and the game's still going on, so your ball rolling time is still running. But I think it's an interesting, is at what kind of level do you kind of pitch that at in terms of a good level? I think the FA go for 70%. That I recall that. I think that
it's a good point, and also on that, I think you could have 100% ball rolling time, but it could be a really rubbish lesson, right? Still, it doesn't make a great session, does it? It's what you do with it. And other factors come into play: how much time you've got, the facilities where you are, the weather. But if you look at teaching and learning as a concept, and essentially when we're coaching, that's kind of what we're doing, right? The ball rolling time, there's probably a lot of teaching going on, a lot of learning going on, but it may be better to have a few minutes out to digest some of that teaching, so it becomes slightly deeper learning. And like you mentioned, there's ways in which you could do that. You could, get in the players with a whiteboard and a pen to jot down their thoughts of what's gone on and stuff, to reflect, in the moment about what they're doing.
So just quickly to interrupt this, in that situation, you've got ball rolling time has stopped, but your active learning time is still running.
Exactly. So this is the thing. I mean, there's an argument that active learning time is active, so that it's physical. So if they were sitting and writing down, how physical is that going to be? But I would say I wouldn't get too hung up on it. I think it's important to recognise the difference between the two, and look at your sessions from an active learning point of view, because that fundamentally is probably going to give you more of that access flow states where the learning is really happening and the players stay in that zone where the best learning opportunities for them in that moment. But it's part of the whole thing. If we go back to, was it episode 1, we spoke about the ingredients of a good coaching session. I mean, your ball rolling time is definitely one of those things, but active learning time is is as important.
Yeah.
And it's just saying, okay, on today, with the group I've got, with the session I'm doing, with the resources that I've got in the environment I'm in, including the temperature and everything else, what would be right today? Because to tell you, if it's 90 odd degrees out there, you might want a little bit of time to let the players have a drink and a moment or two just to not have you in their ear, you know.
Yeah.
Because that, if it's like -5, actually we need to keep going today, and we're going to keep the ball going, and we're not going to stop too much, and we're not too many interventions, but particularly whole group interventions. We'll do some one-to-one stuff. But also, I think prepping. If there's one thing that I've seen that impacts mostly on ball rolling time or active learning time, where the coaches haven't really thought about it, is probably in the planning the session and the physical setup of it.
Yeah.
You know, how practice is built into each other, where the bibs are. Like I see, coaches changing players' bibs and trying to sort it out in a moment. Well, you can put 3 players on green bibs and then 5 players on orange bibs over 3 of the top players with the green bibs on. So you just think ahead and planning it out, and it can keep the session flow kind of nice, and it keeps the players in that flow state of learning. Which again gives you that compound interest on the session where you're not breaking and starting again.
Yes.
So I think it's just being conscious of it and managing that way. So there is a difference between the two. Active learning is probably a better indicator of the amount of individual learning taking place, but ball rolling time is certainly important too.
Yeah.
Can we answer that?
I think we've answered that. Yeah, I hope that kind of answers Santi's question.
And taking a game-based approach, I'd say was a big way of keeping ball rolling time.
I thought you'd get that one in at some point.
I'll pitch in for that.
No, it makes sense. And as I said, I hope that answers kind of Santi's question. If it doesn't, Santi, and you're listening, you're only on podcast 2, so maybe you're going to get there in a couple of weeks.
Give us a 1-star rating and a poor review.
Yeah, please don't. Just come back to us, drop us a note, or find us on Twitter, and we're happy to kind of discuss it again, or even pick the phone up and talk to you. More than happy to do that.
Thank you for the question, Santi. Good question. Appreciate that one.
Yeah.
So it knocks on slightly into more of a discussion now, Mark. I think around an idea we've had. I'm not sure if it's a unique idea, but it's an idea, and we want to share it and debate it, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll let you introduce the idea.
All right. So we're going to talk about CTMs. So I'm sure everyone knows what CTMs are, right? Or maybe not, because we've just made it up.
Yes.
So this is the thinking. Well, CTM could stand for Collaborative Training Matches.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something I am aware that goes on in academy practice. So it does happen. I don't know, but my gut feel is here it might not happen as much as it could happen.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something that I've seen happen at the next level down. Whether that's your grassroots or your development centre, or whatever level it is that's not at the pro academies, I don't think it happens there. And so the idea being that you find a like-minded coach who has a team that they manage, that arguably is the same as your team in many ways, or at least one that you want to play against. But prior to arranging the fixture or having the fixture, you work collaboratively to agree what you want to get out of the game that's in the best interest for all the players. So, for example, you've got team yellows, I've got team blues, okay? And I don't know you or your team. We don't play every single Sunday. You might not be around the corner from us, but we've made contact, and there is something specific you would like to work on in a real match environment against players you don't know that well, and your players don't know that well. But what you need is me to support you a little bit in managing my team to be able to allow you the opportunity, the affordances to exercise that practice in the most realistic possible environment.
Okay, so in that, if I put it into a kind of real life example, then so if with my under 10s team we are playing out from the back, practicing playing out from the back, we might want to play against a team that kind of presses very high and puts us under pressure when we're trying to play out from the back.
Yep.
In that way, we're kind of maximising our learning, because the players are under pressure as soon as they receive the ball, and they've got to make the kind of right decision what to do with it.
100%. I mean, you could go one stage further and say, because obviously in the league rules that we play in, they still have a retreat line at under 10s. So the opposition players have to retreat back to the halfway line when it's a goal kick. Now you might say, "I'll tell you what, I don't want that today.
Yeah.
If it's okay, Scott, we could get and you press us straight away. Maybe we have the treat line for us for a different reason, but you don't want it. You're saying I'll sacrifice to a treat line because I actually want my right back, left back to play under pressure from kickoff. Can they find space? Can the keeper make good choices? Can the midfield players move into positions to get the ball? Let's really, that's what we want to work on.
Yeah.
I mean, how you manipulate the game or the conditions around it is really the world's your oyster, right?
Yeah,
it really is. But and I don't know why we don't do it more just in the regular games, but we don't, and it's probably back to the old winning results kind of thing. So okay, let's park that for now. But I would love to have half a dozen managers or so that run teams in a similar way that we do, where you could go and play a match where genuinely the result does not matter.
Yeah.
What does matter is an opportunity for us to practice something here. So, for example, we don't kick the ball long, but other teams do against us. How do our players get to practice that outside of the Sunday games, if you like? Yeah. If we only do it in the summer, because we don't practice in training, we don't kick balls long in training. So it's a poor example, but it's another way you could say, well, I'll tell you what, Mark, for that, even if it was, can you go long ball on us? Can you practice, can you go, you don't want to be a long ball team, I understand it, but hey, do you mind, or we go half a game each, going long ball on each other, you get some practice on it, and it's not the best example of how you could use this, but it's just a basic way of saying, look, and we know what's coming, so we can prepare the players. It's not, the game's still a game, they're still competing, because we can't take that out of football. The players just still want to win, but there's going to be conditions set around the game which will allow us to get what we want out of it. Maybe a formation. You might say, I really want our players to be working on switching play, from across field. So you might want me to pick a formation makes us quite narrow, so it gives you space on the wings, so it gives you the opportunity to do that. Which fine. Until you get competent enough to a level in which you could play against switch play almost against any formation, or why not play against us for a couple of weeks, where we play a slight formation that allows you the opportunity to do that a bit more, so the players get some practice.
I very much like the idea. I actually think I like the idea that maybe you stumbled across when you're talking there around, actually you do a kind of 50-50. So in the situation where we want to play it from the back, we want to play a competitive team that are going to kind of press us high, we do that for half, and then we switch it, and the other team pass out the back, and then we're learning about pressing high and trying to win the ball up early on in advanced positions, and trying to create chances and score goals. I think I like that idea more, actually, where you kind of you do a kind of 50-50. You would, I guess, agree something up front, as you said. This is what we're going to focus on as two teams.
Yeah.
And then you switch it up. Yeah.
Yeah, it really could be anything, couldn't it? I mean, it gets more complicated, I guess, as the teams get bigger. So like in a five-a-side format like we play with the U7s, I mean, there's so much you could do, I guess. But you can find that in the five-a-side format, one or two players can dominate. They're particularly strong and that far ahead of the other players, they can really dominate. Yeah. So that's fine. But what you might say is physically, potentially, technically, or likewise, they might really struggle. So what you could say is that we've got this team of 8 players, and actually I've got 2 or 3 here, that are bang on really good, and 1 or 2 that are struggling. So by working with you, Mark, can we fix it? So actually, when my 2 not so strong players are out on the pitch, can you not have your strongest team on as well at that point? So they get some opportunity to develop their game, not in a forced economy, because their level's still going to be good. We're not talking about it being, unrealistic, but just there's no point if by just sheer chance ends up playing that my front player, who's not particularly strong and gets his 15 minutes out now, is playing against your best centre back. That's just the rock, because that's how that's just how you've scheduled and we've scheduled our 15 minutes or that quarter, whatever it might be. Do you know what I mean? I want to put a kid in goal that's not so confident in goal, and I don't want him to get battered 10-0. So can you, maybe for that 10 minutes, can you organise a game where you'll say, we want to keep possession anyway, so we'll do a possession practice. We're still going to try and get some goals, but rather than everyone falling 100 miles an hour, we'll try and do a 10-pass play before we try and get a shot on target, or we'll try and build backwards to go forwards.
I think you got to try and keep it match realistic. But I take your point, and I wonder whether you actually could go one step further to just completely take the whole score out of the situation, is actually change the format in terms of the goal. So it's still directional, but actually you have, maybe like we saw at the League One Development Centre last night, you have the 2 bazooka goals either side, no goalkeepers, So therefore, actually, no one really knows the score because there's lots of goals going in.
Yeah.
There's no goalkeeper, and you just completely take it to the next level, right? And it's just it still looks like a football game,
right? The boys are still playing football.
You're still playing one end to the other. You're still attacking. You're still defending. You can still maybe have your retreat line if you want to, or you can do things. But actually, you're taking the whole winning, losing, scoring element out of it. The boys are still scoring goals in the little bazooka goals.
Yeah.
But actually, you're taking it to the next level.
Well, that's a great example of how you might say, and you could have a full size goal one end, as in whatever size you're playing with, and say you were doing switching play. You say, "Oh, let's see what. Do you mind maybe for the end we're attacking, we have two small goals to attack in, so we can encourage the players to switch play at the right times." So they might say, absolutely fine, we'll attack in the 12x6 goal, but you can attack in the 2 4x2 goals. You know, there you go. I mean, there's loads of ways in which you can manipulate it, but it's just, you know, like we might do at training where you might say, we'll play against each other's teams, but it's never the same when the players know each other. You know, either if that's your own team playing like a 5v5 against each other, or you're playing against the A or the C team, whatever else, it's never the same. Too much, especially at the younger ages, there's too much psychological stuff with that kind of impacts on the football, doesn't it? You know, they're all friends from school. There's not the unknown, you know. It's just not the same as then trying to transfer that into a Sunday match against a team you don't know, where this enables you to have that kind of real experience of playing against a team, but just slightly controlled. And you don't want to over manipulate it. You're right. It's got to stay realistic, but it's still going to be a game. I don't think it shouldn't be a match, and it should have goals, and it should have scores, and everything else should be directional. You know, to the players, besides some of the conditions you put on the game for them potentially, and they wouldn't necessarily have to know what the opposition are. Probably better they don't know what the opposition are or aren't doing. Probably. Yeah,
totally agree.
And again, one other way in which you could do it, you could play a game and just say, well, I'll tell you what, Mark, how about we do this one where at no point during the game, where the game's on, we talk to the outfield players as coaches. We don't do that. So we might talk to the subs, or we might get the subs to talk to the outfield players, or we might pull a player off to have a chat with them, while they're, you know, and whatever else. But, you know, or do we go completely say, like, this game's all about players today, so we'll rock up with 2 teams, you know, and we won't tell anything beforehand, we've agreed it all. It's obviously a big element of trust here, but why would you abuse the trust? It'd be crazy to get one over on a team that's giving, you know, it'd be I can't believe people would take advantage of it. But you could turn up and just say, right, you pick the formation, guys. They're doing the same thing, picking their formation, pick your captain, have your team talk. I'm just going to facilitate, as in just keep it going. But you guys are running the show today. And seeing both teams how they get out of it, you know, and you can manage it with the manager to make sure that it stays competitive and it's all good and everyone's happy still. But what a great experience! That's the kind of thing that you probably wouldn't do enough on the league games, because rightly or wrongly, it just means a bit more than it should.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I don't think this will ever. I think it would be great if it took off as a you can have a league based like this, but I don't think it will ever take off in that way. I think it will always be, you would need to select, or you would need to find like-minded coaches. And I think, to be fair, like, we're quite keen on the football coaching, as I'm sure the audience can appreciate, listeners can appreciate. But there's a lot of coaches out there that maybe just do it, just kind of their dads, and they just kind of turn up on a Saturday, a bit of training, or they just turn up for the matches on a Sunday. So maybe they're not that way inclined. So you'll probably never get it a big league structure in doing this kind of thing. So this is almost incremental matches on top of your league matches. Now, I think the question to me then is, actually, do you get more value out of doing that, or would you get more value out of training? And I know this probably comes back to a podcast we've done with Chris Fraser previously, when he was a big fan of matches and conditioned matches and things like that against the opposition. I totally understand that point. I totally agree with what you're saying here. I'm just still quite a big fan of being on training on a Saturday and then matches on a Sunday, or training during a week, training Saturday. I like that kind of being out with the players, I guess, just from a coaching standpoint, and them really, really supporting them and helping them develop in training. So the question is, would you be comfortable? Would you do this maybe once a month, or would you do it more regular than that? Are you now a kind of a fan of this kind of match format instead of training?
You're right. Chris did mention about the ratio to training into matches practice. And when he said about preferring matches, in my head I was disagreeing. I was nodding to his face, but I was thinking, I don't know if I agree with that.
I hope he's not listening to this one.
But I reflected and thought about that. Actually, you know what? He's right. He's dead right. The problem is I don't think we have the matches how they should be to really support the training, and there's probably too many barriers in the way to change that, especially overnight. Like you said, you're dead right, for the league games that we have. So what you could then do potentially is this, in which you get the best of both worlds, where you can do the training and have the practice as well in match conditions. So it hasn't got to be exclusive. Like, you could have your 90-minute training session, and then next week have the match. You could have 2 training sessions and a match. You could have 3 training sessions, whatever you wanted to do. Or you could say, I'll tell you what, we'll have a 45-minute training session and a 45-minute match, to bring it out, then some reflection. So, again, if you've got half a dozen people that think like you think, I'm sure you could make it work in any way you liked. But I love the idea. I haven't done it, so the answer to your question is, I like the idea of it. We'll have to see it out and practice. Something all ideas play out in practice, do they? But I like the idea of having just my 90-minute training session, and then a match at some point when we're ready to have that match. I like the idea of having a 40-minute training session and then a nice 45-minute match or something like that, and then something afterwards. I just think it depends on what you were doing and how intense maybe what you're working on was, how much fun what you're working was on. But I just think I don't know that. I'm not saying this is revolutionary, and it's probably something about saying, well, we do this all the time, guys. What are you talking about? You guys are way behind over here. But certainly from what I've seen in England, this doesn't happen enough. I know it happens at academies, and they're better at doing this sometimes, but I don't even think they do it enough. Again, like if you're an academy and you run it every single week, please shout out, because you can tell us that I'm wrong, but also B, maybe give us some ideas how you can make this work in practice. But what I do know categorically is I've never seen this done to any half decent level at a grassroots level in this country. I've never seen it. And if people are doing it, I'd love to hear from them and find out how they do it, how they got it going and stuff, because I just think we could amplify the effectiveness of our training sessions so much more by having these collaborative training matches, in which you put all the players' interests first. It is still competitive. It's not a nonsense friendly. We just roll up and you just, you're putting cones on the pit. It looks like a game. It feels like a game. Yes, you could change the goals. I think that's one equipment change you could do. But you probably aren't going to start playing with 2 balls. You probably aren't going to start putting magic and bounce players in. That's not going to happen, I don't think, unless you've got a reason to do that. But there's certainly ways in which you can manipulate the game so it feels just like a game to the players, but you're bringing out certain things that, like you would do in a small-sided game in your practice, but in a real match conditions, because you're then that one step closer again for having the players actually be able to do that in a match, because you've seen them do it, almost to the real things you can get to it. But rather going from the nice AstroTurf on a Saturday, working on a particular splitting the lines move that's been lovely because you've played against 4v4 with your own players, know each other, know what you're doing, and you've conditioned it just enough to make it work, to finding out or going there for your league game on the Saturday or Sunday and thinking, it's not working today. I can't understand why it's not working. Why isn't it transferred? They were doing this brilliantly last week. And I think this would be that. This could be part of that missing piece of the puzzle to get you there.
Because I think you need that pressure to really learn and really test your decision making. You need that kind of that pressure. Which maybe you won't achieve in training for certain things.
And everyone, right? I think it's the unknown as well. Like just going to a place. I mean, you may play the team a few times, but if you switch home and away locations, you're not going to play them that many times. You train every week at the same venue, so there's no new there. There's nothing for the players. Psychologically, it's a very comfortable environment, right? Straight away, you're playing in where you train, so there's that pressure's gone straight away. Just moving, even if it's exactly the same thing, but in an away venue somewhere, it's different straight away. It's just the environment's different. So that alone, you can't change that. You can't bring exactly the same training environment to an away venue. So before you talk about the size of the pitch, the quality of the surface you're playing on, what the opposition players are like, what their coaches are like, what their parents are like, the weather, all these things that come into play before
And in fact, they just pull on the Ickenham shirt, right, as well. It's just different. It feels different for
exactly.
them.
And there's a psychological thing. Again, I mean, and I don't know that it's just an age thing, because I'm pretty sure that 5 and 6 year olds get nervous, definitely, but I'm pretty sure that 15 and 16 year old kids do as well. Yeah. Probably even 25 and 26 year olds. But it's all relative, right? Yeah. Different pressures at different levels. So the more you can do it in a way that you're just bridging that gap, it feels like there's a missing link between transferring what you do at training on during the week to what you're going to get when you're on your weekend games, and this could be one more tool in your armory to try and bridge that gap with a bit of creative thinking, like-minded coaches, a bit of planning up front, and a bit of time and effort put into it. You haven't got to do it every week, right? I mean, you may just do this 3 times out in the season just to see what the more I guess the more you put into it, the more you might get out of it. But you don't have to be as obsessive as you are about this stuff.
Yeah, I think I certainly can see value. I'm very much I like a training man. I very very much like that approach. But I can certainly see there's benefits of doing this. Maybe for my team, maybe once a month. Instead of training, we would do this. We'd have this kind of match. This collaborative training match. We've done something similar in the past where we've selected teams whereby we can do certain things in terms of boys' positions and things like that. We haven't agreed up front with the opposition.
Okay,
it's been more we want to play this team because we think that we can be competitive, not to win the game, not that we're going to get smashed. It would be a competitive game if we played, I don't know, our goalkeeper at left defender or right defender, or we changed the formation, things like that. And we try and do that maybe once every couple of months, maybe once every 3 months. And this to me would just taking that a little bit to a step further.
Yeah, so you're right. I think that's probably what people would say. We do a bit of this.
Yeah.
Well, like the only way I would say you do this if you are talking with the opposition manager prior to the game about what your plan is for the match. You know, I mean, it could be pretty loose around just what you're working on, just sharing that alone, and maybe your lineups and who's on at certain times, just to keep, just doing that. And it could get a lot more involved. Just okay, we agree what we're going to do for each quarter of the game, and it could be a lot more detailed. But I've never heard anybody do it as of yet. But you're right, you as you've done it for a few seasons, you start to know the teams, and you think actually we could try this against this team because they'll afford us some opportunities because of the way they play their game. Or maybe they're a nice team,
and it's not because you want to win; it's because
the challenges they're going to face are going to suit or present are going to be ones that you don't want to face. All right, so I'm going to put you under pressure then. Are you about to put me under pressure?
I was going to put you under pressure.
I'm going to do you first. Okay, so if you were going to do this, and you had the opportunity to do it in 3 weeks' time, what would you work on with your team, and how would you set it up between now and 3 weeks' time?
So I think, firstly, I would work. Well, bearing in mind, I'm at 7-a-side right now. We're going to 9-a-side next season. So when our phase finishes, we're going to be our phase 2. The way our league works, as you know, we have 2 phases: October to December, and then January to kind of mid-April. So we're approaching the end of phase 2, the end of our kind of 7-a-side season. So I'm going to be playing a lot of friendlies at 9-a-side. So I've got the option to think about what I can do when I go to 9-a-side, but I'd answer the question based on the 7-a-side approach. I think what I would do, I would really encourage, I play 2 at the back, 3 in midfield, 1 front player. I would really encourage my 2 wide midfielders to stay high. Don't worry about defending so much. Stay high, get the ball, have a go on a 1-1 basis. I kind of encourage that now, but I want them to kind of come back and help us defensively and make us kind of compact and things like that. But I would actively encourage that, and I would actively encourage then to make a front 3 and then to press high.
Okay,
to go and win that ball. That's what I would do.
So how could I help you if I was the opposing manager? What would you be saying to me then to help you achieve that? What would you want me to do with my team?
So I would like the retreat line to stay. Yep. So that we would be ready from a goal kick. And I would ideally like the opposition to kind of pass out either through midfield or at the back. Yep. So then my team would press high, As a unit, we'd have to work on training in terms of how we would do it.
Yeah.
But we would press high and try and win that ball back.
So we could have a conversation where I say, I'm quite interested in trying to do some possession-based stuff with the team, try and keep the ball a little bit and play from the back. So I'm happy to do that 100%, and you'll press us hard in our half of the pitch, and we've got to try and break you down and get past you. We could potentially even commit some extra player forward. So we've got to play through our back, but once we get the break forward, we might have an overload in that situation against your defenders. So quite attacking on both teams, I guess, but you're pressing with possession. I think that would work.
It would work. Yeah, I think the challenge you're going to have is finding like-minded coaches. I think you have to put yourself out there to find them. Yeah, which I think is the right thing to do. You'd have to do that. Yeah. And then I think the agree in the kind of criteria of the game. I think that's going to be the real difficult piece, because maybe that you want to work on something that's going to be different from someone else. Yeah. Then how do you? Maybe you do 50-50 the game.
We do reverse fixture, don't we? We kind of agree and say, give us what you want. Tell me what you want this week, and we'll do it. I mean, obviously, you want to make it work for your players as well. You can't undo the things you're doing as a favour for the other team. So you want to keep some consistency around your practices, but I think you could make it work. Yeah. And then we spin it ahead and do something the other way around, like you say.
I think you have to try. And I think this is where your challenge is.
Yeah.
So your challenge, firstly, I think you need to copyright this, the CTM name. I think you need to copyright it.
It's done.
But secondly,
there'll be a Facebook page up with no copyright in no time at all.
But secondly, I think your challenge, and I think you should take this and come back to the podcast in future. Okay. Actually, let's find a team where we do it. Okay. And maybe we could even film bits of the game where it's been done and put it on the Twitter account. Then obviously I'll help. I'm happy to ref the game.
All right, yeah. Number one ref.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take the challenge on. So we're mid-March. So before, somewhere between now and the summer break, I intend to try and get 3 practice games in. Okay. Whether that's with the same team or different teams, we'll see. But I'm going to get 3 collaborative training matches themed in that build around a particular focus of our sessions, and we'll play them. That's my commitment to that. And then we'll report back before the summer break on how it's gone and things. Perfect. And if anybody out there besides me and you thinks this is half a decent idea,
or they don't agree on it, or they don't agree, they've got a better solution or
better system, or if either they do agree and want to help us or try it themselves, we would love to hear. Give it a go and let's see if we can spread something here. Maybe we've just missed something and it's going on out there in the big wide world and we just missed it. But like I say, I've not heard of it too much. But we're going to go with CTM's collaborative training matches. Give them a go. Can you find like-minded coaches that think like you, that are willing to put a game on in which you can manage the game without over-managing the game, to work on the things that you're building around your training practice, so you can really bring it out there and work together to make that happen for all the players' interests. It is still competitive. Your players will still want to win, but play in the way that you want to do it. And maybe it's the winning for those games might be getting the outcomes from what you're trying to achieve based on the theme that you're putting into practice rather than the result possibly.
So we keep it realistic. It's game realistic.
100%. It should be, shouldn't it? It should feel different to training. It should be that. It should be that you've got training, you've got your full-on competitive matches, then you've got these CTMs in between. That's kind of where it sits, and this is the link between the 3, if you like. So.
And your one further challenge for you as well. I'm putting you on the spot here. I think the listeners are probably
3 matches.
I think the listeners probably thought we've made this up, but we're making up as we go along. To be honest, so your last challenge is
I think they probably know that.
Yeah, probably right there. If you can get the like-minded coach to come on and talk as well, I think that would be fantastic. Right. That is a big challenge.
Got to find a like-minded coach that's willing to come on a podcast.
Yeah, that is. I think if you can get
the 2 come together, don't they?
Yeah, they probably would. Yeah.
All right. Look, regardless of how successful it is, we will honestly and openly report back at some point between now and the summer break, right before the summer, and see how it goes. Even if it's me just saying, never got a chance to do it, I run out of time. But no, I will do it, and we'll feedback.
Perfect.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, so a little recap then. So Santi's email was great. I really appreciate that. Great to get a question around ball rolling time and active learning time, and I hope we covered that to some extent. We then looked around this idea about having these collaborative training matches where you find like-minded coach to work with on a particular theme, and I hope we explained that okay. And we'd love some thoughts on that. Yep. We probably shouldn't finish without saying congratulations to the Lionesses, who after a tough 2-2 draw with the USA ladies team, which I think they got one there just about, didn't they, on the 2-2.
Yeah.
They had a good win yesterday against Japan to win the She Believes Cup.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ladies football in this country is really going from strength to strength.
Is,
There's a lot of good stuff going on.
And I think even within our own club, there's the girls section is really growing. Which is
lots of women's teams now around.
It's fantastic to see. Really good to see.
I'm lucky enough to have my assistant coach is a lady, and she's got the women's little team she set up as well, running on a Tuesday night, and it's great just to see that's getting some momentum, and the quality of football is excellent, and it's good to see. So well done to the Lionesses for that, a good result. And we won't mention Ajax and Madrid, although Ajax seem to be
unbelievable, right?
Yeah, very, very impressive,
and a great result for Tottenham as well. I know you might not like that one,
but is it the quarterfinals now for them?
Quarterfinals, yeah.
So I don't mind it, which means Pochettino will go to Madrid, so I'm all right with that. All right. So, well, thanks very much, Mark.
No,
and thanks for listening. Just a couple of things in quickly. Please do email us if you need to. If you need to, please email us about your thoughts and stuff like that. It's info@thesoccercoachingpodcast.com. You can reach us on Twitter, which is @thesoccercoachcast. And any feedback would be great. We kind of say about leaving reviews and 5 stars, which would be great too, obviously. But I'd say possibly more importantly, just if you think it's any good what you're listening to and you want to share it with people, please just share the link out there and get more people listening to it. It's nice to see the ratings, and we seem to be going up every week, and it's quite good seeing the stats in all the different countries and towns people are listening in. And we are global now, Mark. We've gone international.
Well, we got a question from the Philippines.
There you go. So we've had the States, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. So it's good to hear where you guys are at and get some feedback. But thanks for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Have a great week, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers, Mark.
Thanks.